Hi there, we are today on a beautiful day looking at Leviathan Mine, and with me today is also Kevin Mayer. He's with the EPA. He's going to talk a little history of Leviathan Mine and what we're looking at on the treatment. Kevin?
Well, we're here actually on Leviathan looking at the open pit. This right behind us used to be Leviathan Peak. That high point there was below the peak, another 400 feet high, and that whole mountaintop was broken up and pushed onto the other side of this mountain so that the miners could dig out this big open pit, about 50 acres, and extract the sulfur. They were using sulfur to help a copper mine in Yerington. In Yerington, they use 600 tons a day of high-grade sulfur that they extracted from the Leviathan mine. Now, one thing we can see from here is the different colored rocks on the side of the pit there. Those white rocks are bleached from the geothermal activity that put the sulfur and some other minerals in the place here underneath what had been Leviathan Peak. The geothermal activity takes high pressure, and the sulfur comes up from deep in the earth, and as it gets close to the surface, it and puts those minerals in the rocks themselves. So down here at my feet is a piece of the rock that was a native rock, and here is elemental sulfur, very high-grade sulfur, and as that sulfur mixes with water and oxygen in the air, it turns into sulfuric acid. And that sulfuric acid is what bleached those rocks and what causes this bright water in this pit here. This pit and these other pits along here were built by the state of California to capture some very acidic and mineral-rich water coming out of this pit area. That water is mostly sulfuric acid at a pH of about 2, whereas neutral is a pH of about 7. And what you're seeing is that the iron that is dissolved with the sulfuric acid turns the water that bright red. Well, the iron is a minor issue compared to the arsenic and the copper and the nickel and the zinc that's also coming out because of the sulfuric acid dissolving those minerals out of the native rock.
You have a canal or channel ice here. That's Leviathan Creek, is that right?
Yes, one of the things that the state of California did in the 1980s was, besides building these pits and terracing these waste rock piles, is that it took the clean water from Leviathan Creek and put it in a concrete channel to keep it away from the sulfur and the minerals, and let that flow through this mine waste and end up in the native creek bed down below the mine. This runs for a half a mile to get through this waste rock.
We've now moved to the pit area itself. So Kevin, can you describe what we're seeing in this pit?
Yes, we're in the bottom of the open pit mine. This used to be a little bit deeper. It's been filled in so we don't have a pit lake that would cause even more problems. And it's been terraced a bit and a bit of vegetation after a lot of hard work and experimentation. But this is the 50-acre open pit mine all around the edges here. This used to be well over 400 to 600 feet of mountain up above where I'm standing here. Part of it was pushed off to the Aspen Creek side, and the rest of it was dug out, shipped to Yerington, or the waste rock that wasn't of high enough grade was just dumped into the Leviathan Creek Canyon. The thing we're seeing right here is one of the ways to deal with separating the clean water, once it's been treated with lime, from the sludge. What I'm holding in my hand here is the sludge. it's lime mixed with sulfuric acid turns into gypsum, the type of material that you use to a wallboard on your house. This is orange because of all the iron in it. But what happens here is that lime is mixed with sulfuric acid, pumped up sulfuric acid from the ponds, and it's pumped up here in a slurry. It's still mostly water, but it's this orange colored water. And it's put into this pit where the solids settle to the bottom and the clean water flows over into these pipes here. That's tested and then discharged, as if it meets water quality standards, discharged into Leviathan Creek. And then at the end of the year, there's drain pipes underneath here. This U-shaped area, that's a drain pipe covered with sand, and that water drains down into that French drain, and then it's tested and discharged when it meets water quality standards. But it leaves several inches of sludge. These are a few tons of sludge. Later this year, the contractors will get in here, dig this stuff up, and haul it off to a licensed hazardous waste treatment area. Actually, it's a landfill. What we're really seeing here is 2 out of 3 different types of lime treatment that are being tried here at Leviathan Mine, and while they're being tested for their ability to operate over the long term, they're also cleaning up the acid that would, all during the winter, is just going into Leviathan Creek untreated and degrading that water quality. This year we started treating in May, which is the earliest we've been able to treat. Usually by May, the water in Leviathan Creek has gone way down since all the snow has melted. And as the water level goes down, the acid discharge becomes a larger proportion of Leviathan Creek, and the greater the proportion of Leviathan Creek that's sulfuric acid, the worse it is for Leviathan Creek and everything trying to grow and live downstream for miles and miles and miles. We're about 9 miles away from the East Fork of the Carson River, and about 2 or 3 miles on Bryant Creek, where Leviathan and Mountaineer come together. And that whole 9 miles, when we started here in 2000, that was degraded. There were basically no fish. And now we can bring the fish back at least the first 6 to 7 miles of Bryant Creek.
Okay, we're at a new location and actually a kind of different treatment site.
You're right.
So Kevin, will you explain what we're looking at here?
Well, we're near the bottom of nearly 100 acres of waste rock that was pulled off the top of the Leviathan Mine open pit and dumped into another canyon where Aspen Creek flows. And Aspen Creek is flowing down below us here, where all these trees are growing quite healthily now. But what we can see is some of that discolored water at the bottom of this waste pile. The water is turned into sulfuric acid, and it's seeping out the toe of this waste material. But what's really exciting is that we're using a state-of-the-art treatment system where bacteria, natural bacteria, that take sulfuric acid, take the sulfate, and basically they're breathing that and changing the sulfate from sulfuric acid to a form that is not very soluble, called iron sulfide. And when it changes that form, naturally, all the heavy metals, the arsenic, the iron, the nickel, and the zinc fall out of solution into a minor bit of sludge. And we don't have to add all that lime. What we're doing is just adding a bit of ethanol or some other waste product that the bacteria will use to grow, and the water flows through these 2 ponds that are maybe 20 feet deep with rocks that the bacteria are attached to, and the waste material flows through there. The bacteria change the sulfuric acid into hydrogen sulfide. The pH comes up, the metals drop out, and the clean water then can flow into Aspen Creek, which eventually flows into Leviathan Creek.
Okay, we're at a new site. This is actually where two channels coming, Leviathan Creek and Mountaineer Creek. Kevin, tell us what we see here.
Well, the one thing we can see behind us is a crystal clear water, beautiful rocks, plenty of bugs on all of these rocks. Mountaineer Creek, oh yeah, look at caddisflies right here. Yeah, that's a caddisfly too. They're mayflies, stoneflies, also known as trout food to us pragmatic biologists. Clear water, crystal clear water, not affected by the mine. What we've got here is the mine drainage of Leviathan Creek. Now the water has really improved since we began the treatment system earlier this week, but you can still see the murkiness of the water as some of the fine particles are still suspended in the water. In a few weeks, that will clear up too, and this will be nice and crystalline. But you can tell right here, these rocks still have some orange colored precipitate on it. That orange is from the iron that's coming out of the acid mine drainage. But along with the iron, the non-colored, you probably have arsenic, copper, nickel, zinc in small concentrations, but more than had been here naturally. So this remaining sediment that's on the bottom of the creek, that will wash out over the year. But if we then turn off the treatment system in the autumn, this material will come back year after year after year, and we still have to deal with this. So ultimately, we need a long-term solution to keep any acid mine drainage from flowing into this drainage.